Hello everyone. Today we will discuss chapter 2, the construction of ancient Indian history. Material remains. The ancient Indians left innumerable material remains. The stone temples in South India and the brick monasteries in Eastern India still stand to remind us of the great building activities of the past. But the major part of these remains lies buried in the mounds scattered all over the country. Only a few have been exposed to give us some knowledge of the life of the ancient people. Since most sites have been dug vertically, they provide a good chronological sequence of material culture. Horizontal diggings, being very expensive, are very few in number, with the result that excavations do not give us a full and complete picture of material life in many phases of ancient Indian history. Even in those mounds which have been excavated, the ancient remains have been preserved in varying proportions. In the dry climate of western Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, and northwestern India, antiquities are found in a better state of preservation. But in the moist and humid climate of the middle Gangetic basin and in the deltaic region, even iron implements suffer corrosion and mud structures become difficult to detect. It is only in the it is only in the phase of burned brick structures or stone structures that impressive and large scale remains are found in moist and alluvial areas. Excavations have brought to light the cities which the people established around 2500 BC in northwestern India. Similarly, they will tell us about the material culture which was developed in the Gangetic Basin. They show the layout of the settlements in which people lived, the type of pottery they used, the form of house in which they dealt, the kind of cereals they used as food, and the type of tools and implements they handled. Some people in South India, some people in South India buried along with the dead their tools, weapons, pottery, and other belongings in the graves, which were encircled by big pieces of stone. These structures are called megaliths, although all megaliths do not fall in this category. By digging them, we have come to learn of the life which people lived in the Deccan from the Iron Age onwards. The science which enables us to dig the old mounds in a systematic manner in successive layers and to form an idea of the material life of the people is called archaeology. Material remains as recovered as a result of excavation and exploration are subjected to various kinds of scientific examination. Their dates are fixed according to the radiocarbon method, for which facilities exist in India. The history of climate and vegetation is known through an examination of plant residues and especially through pollen analysis. Thus, on this basis, it is suggested that agriculture was practiced in Rajasthan and Kashmir as far as back as 6000 BC. The nature and components of metal artifacts are analyzed scientifically, and as a result, the sources from where metals were obtained are located, and the stages in the development of metal technology are identified. An examination of animal bones enables us to find out whether the animals were domesticated and also to point out the uses to which they were put. Coins. Although a good number of coins and inscriptions have been found on the surface, many of them have been unearthed by digging. The study of coins is called numismatics. Ancient Indian currency was not issued in the form of paper, as is the practice these days, but as coins because paper came to be used in India much later in the 14th century. Ancient coins were made of metal, copper, silver, gold, or lead. Coin molds made of burned clay have been discovered in large numbers. Most of them belong to the Kushan period, that is, the first three Christian centuries. The use of such molds in the post Gupta period almost disappeared. Since there was nothing like the modern banking system in ancient times, people deposited money in earthenware and also in brass vessels and maintained them as precious hoards on which they could fall back in time of need. Many of these hoards containing not only Indian coins but also those minted abroad, such as in the Roman Empire, have been discovered in different parts of the country. They are preserved mostly in museums at Calcutta, Patna, Lucknow, Delhi, Jaipur, Bombay, and Madras. Many Indian coins are found in museums of Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Since Britain ruled over India for a long time, British officials succeeded in transferring many of the Indian coins to private and public collections in that country. Coins of the major dynasties have been catalogued and published. We have catalogs of coins in the Indian Museum at Calcutta, of Indian coins in the British Museum in London, and so on. But there is a large number of coins which have yet to be catalogued and published. Our earliest coins contain a few symbols, but the later coins mention the names of kings, gods, or dates. The areas where they are found indicate the region of their circulation. This has enabled us to reconstruct the history of several ruling dynasties, especially of Indo-Greeks, who came to India from North Afghanistan and ruled here in the 2nd and 1st century BC. Coins also throw a significant light on economic history. Some coins were issued by the guilds of merchants and goldsmiths with the permission of the rulers. This shows that crafts and commerce had become important coins. Important. Coins helped transactions on a large scale and contributed to trade. We get the largest number of coins in the post-Maurya times. These were made of lead, tin, copper, bronze, silver, and gold. The Guptas issued the largest number of gold coins. All this indicates that trade and commerce flourished, especially in the post-Maurya and Gupta times. But the fact that only a few coins belonging to the post-Gupta period have been found indicates the decline of trade and commerce at that time. Okay. Coins also contain religious symbols and legends, which throw light on the art and religion of the time. Next is inscriptions. Far more important than coins are inscriptions. Their study is called epigraphy, and the study of old writing used in inscriptions and other old records is called paleography. Inscriptions are carved on seals, stone pillars, rocks, copper plates, temple walls, bricks, or images. In the country as a whole, the earliest inscriptions were recorded on stone. But in the early centuries of the Christian era, copper plates began to be used for this purpose. Even then, the practice of engraving inscriptions on stone continued in South India on a large scale. We have also in that region a large number of inscriptions recorded on the walls of the temples to serve as permanent records. Like coins, inscriptions are preserved in the various museums of the country, but the largest number may be found in the office of the chief epigraphist at Mysore. The earliest inscriptions were written in Prakrit language in the 3rd century BC. Sanskrit was adopted as an epigraphic medium in the 2nd century AD, and its use became widespread in the 4th and 5th centuries. Even the Prakrit continued to be employed. Inscriptions began to be composed in regional languages in the 9th and 10th centuries. Most inscriptions bearing on the history of Maurya, post-Maurya, and Gupta times have been published in a series of collections called Corpus Inscriptionum Indicarum. But not too many inscriptions of post-Gupta times have appeared in such systematic compilations. In the case of South India, topographical lists of inscriptions have been brought out. Still, there are more than 50,000 inscriptions, mostly of South India, which await publication. The Harappan inscription, which await decipherment, seem to have been written in a pictographic script in which ideas and objects were expressed in the form of pictures. Ashokan inscriptions are engraved in the Brahmi script, which was written from left to right. Left to right. Okay. Ashokan inscriptions were engraved in the Brahmi script, which was written from left to right. Okay, which we used to write from left to right, right? Okay, but some were also incised in the Kharoshthi script, which was written from right to left. Okay, like Arabic. Okay, however, the Brahmi script prevailed in the whole country except for the northwestern part. Greek and Aramaic scripts were employed in writing Ashokan inscriptions in Afghanistan. Brahmi continued to be the main script till the end of Gupta times. An epigraphist can decipher most inscriptions of the country up to about the 8th century if he has carefully learned Brahmi and its variations. But afterwards, we notice strong regional variations in the script. which is called by different names. The earliest inscriptions are found on the seals of Harappa, belonging to about 2500 BC. They have not been deciphered so far. The oldest inscriptions deciphered so far were issued by Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. An Ashokan pillar inscription was found by Firoz Shah Tughlaq in Meerut. He bought he brought it to Delhi and asked the Pandits of his empire to decipher it, but they failed to do so. The same difficulty was faced by the British when in the last quarter of the 18th century they discovered Ashokan inscriptions. These epigraphs were first deciphered in 1837 by James Prinsep, a civil servant in the employ of the East India Company in Bengal. We have various types of inscriptions. Some convey royal orders and decisions regarding social, religious, and administrative matters to social officials and people in general. Ashokan inscriptions belong to this category. Others are votive records of the followers of Buddhism, Jainism, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, etc., who put up pillars, tablets, temples, or images as marks of devotion. Still, other types eulogize the attributes and achievements of kings and conquerors and never speak of their defeats or weaknesses. To this category belong the Allahabad inscription of Samudragupta. Finally, we have many donative records which refer specially to gifts of money, cattle, land, etc., mainly for religious purposes, made not only by kings and princes but also by artisans and merchants. Inscriptions recording land grants made mainly by chiefs and princes. Inscriptions recording land grants made mainly by chiefs and princes are very important for the study of land system and administration in ancient India. These were mostly engraved on copper plates. They record the grants of land, revenues, and villages made to monks, priests, temples, monasteries, vassals, and officials. They were written in all languages such as Prakrit, Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu. Okay. Literary sources. Although the ancient Indians knew writing as early as 2500 BCE, our most ancient manuscripts are not older than the 4th century AD and have been found in Central Asia. In India, they were written on birch bark and palm leaves, but in Central Asia, where Prakrit language had spread from India, manuscripts were also written on sheep leather and wooden tablets. These writings are called inscriptions, but they are as good as manuscripts. When printing was not known, manuscripts were valued immensely. Although old Sanskrit manuscripts are found all over the country, they mostly belong to South India, Kashmir, and Nepal. At present, inscriptions are mostly preserved in museums and manuscripts in libraries. Most ancient books contain religious themes. The religious literature of the Hindus include the Vedas, epics, Ramayana, and Mahabharata, the Puranas, etc. They throw welcome light on the social and cultural conditions of ancient times, but it is difficult to make use of them in the context of time and place. The Rigveda may be assigned to circa 1500 to 1000 BC, but the collection of Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, the Brahmanas, and the Upanishads belong to roughly 1000 to 500 BC. Almost every Vedic text contains interpolations, which generally appear at its beginning of end, but are not rare in its middle. The Rigveda mainly contains prayers, while the later Vedic texts mainly comprise not only prayers but also rituals, magic, and mythological stories. However, the Upanishads contain philosophical speculations. The two epics and the major Puranas seem to have been finally compiled by circa AD 400. Of the epics, the Mahabharata is older in age and possibly reflects the state of affairs from the 10th century BC to 4th century AD. Originally, it consisted of 8800 verses and was called Jaya Samhita, or the collection of dealing with victory. These were raised to 24,000 and came to be known as Bharata, named after one of the earliest Vedic tribes. The final compilation brought the verses to 1 lakh, which came to be known as the Mahabharata or the Shada Sahasri Samhita. It contains narratives, descriptive, and didactic material Okay, the main narrative which relates to the Kaurava Pandava conflict may belong to later Vedic times. The description portion might be used for post Vedic times, and the didactic portion generally for post Maurya and Gupta times. Similarly, the Ramayana originally consisted of 12,000 verses, which were later raised to 24,000. Okay, this epic also has also its didactic portions which were added later. As a whole, the text seems to have been composed later than the Mahabharata. In post Vedic times, we have a large corpus of ritual literature. Big public sacrifices meant for princes and men of substance belonging to the three higher varnas are laid down in the Sauda Sutras. Okay, which provide for several pompous royal coronation ceremonies. Similarly, domestic rituals connected with birth, naming, sacred thread, investiture, of marriage, funerals, etc., are laid down in Grihya Sutras. Grihya Sutras. Both the Siddha Sutras and Grihya Sutras belong to circa 600 to 300 BC. Mention may also be made of the Sulva Sutras, which prescribe various kinds of measurement for the construction of sacrificial altars. Sulva Sutras, which prescribe various kinds of measurements for the construction of sacrificial altars. They mark the beginnings of geometry and mathematics. Okay, Grihya Sutra and Syuda Sutras. Let me check. It's Shrauda Sutras, Shrauda Sutras, Shrauda Sutras and Grihya Sutras. So, um, yeah, big public sacrifices meant for princes and men of substance belonging to the three higher varnas are laid down in the Shrauda Sutras. Okay, domestic rituals connected with birth, naming, sacred thread, investiture, marriage, funerals, etc., are laid down in the Grihya Sutras. Both the Shrauda Sutras and Grihya Sutras belong to circa 600 to 300 BC. Sula Sutras, which prescribe various kinds of measurement for the construction of sacrificial altars, they mark the beginnings of geometry and mathematics. The religious books of the Jainas and Buddhists refer to the historical persons and incidents. The earliest Buddhist texts were written in the Pali language, which was spoken in Magadha or South Bihar. They were finally compiled in the 2nd century BC in Sri Lanka, but the canonical portions reflect the state of affairs in the age of Buddha in India. They tell us not only about the life of the Buddha, but about, okay, it was believed that before he was finally born as Gautama, the Buddha passed through more than 550 births, in many cases in the form of animals. Okay, each birth story is called Jadaga, which is a folk tale. These Jadagas throw invaluable light on social and economic conditions ranging from the 5th to 2nd century BC. They also make incidental reference to political events in the age of the Buddha. The Jaina texts were written in Prakrit and were finally compiled in the 6th century AD in Vallabhi in Gujarat. They, however, contain many passages which help us to reconstruct the political history of eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar in the age of Mahavira. The Jaina texts refer repeatedly to trade and traders. We have also a large body of secular literature. To this class belong the law books called the Dharma Sutras and Smritis, which together with their commentaries are called Dharma Sutras. The Dharma Sutras were compiled in 500 to 200 BC, and the principal Smritis were codified in the first 6 centuries of the Christian era. They lay down the duties of different varnas as well as for kings and their officials. They prescribe the rules according to which property is to be held, sold, and inherited. They also prescribe punishments for persons guilty of theft, assault, murder, adultery, etc. An important law book is the Artha Sutra of Kautilya. The text is divided into 15 books of which book second and third may be regarded as an earlier date of an earlier date. They seem to have been the work of different hands. This text was put in its final form in the beginning of the Christian era, but its earliest portions reflect the state of society and economy in the age of Mauryas. It provides rich material for the study of ancient Indian polity and economy. We also possess the works of Basa, Kalidasa, and Banabhatta. Apart from their literary value, they mirror the conditions of the times to which these writers belonged. The workers of Kalidasa comprise Kavyas and Dramas, the most famous, which is the Abhignana Shakuntalam. Besides being great uh, creative compositions, creative compositions, they provide us with the glimpses of the social and cultural life of the northern and central India in the age of Guptas. Okay, Abhignana Shakuntalam. In addition to Sanskrit sources, we have some of the earliest Tamil texts found in the corpus of the Sangam literature. This was produced over a period of 3 to 4 centuries by poets who assembled in colleges, patronized by kings. Since these, since such a literary assembly was called as Sangam, the whole literature is known as the Sangam literature. The compilation of the corpus is attributed for the first 4 Christian centuries, although final compilations may have been completed by the 6th century. The Sangam literature is a very major source for our information for the social, economic, and political life of the people living in deltaic Tamil Nadu in the early Christian centuries. What it says about trade and commerce is attested by foreign accounts and archaeological finds. Foreign accounts. Indigenous literature can be supplemented by foreign accounts. To India came the Greek, Roman, and Chinese visitors, either as travelers or religious converts, and they left behind accounts of the things that they saw. It is remarkable that Alexander's invasion finds no mention in the Indian sources, and it is entirely on the basis of the Greek sources that we have to reconstruct the history of his Indian exploits. The Greek visitors mention Sandiocotas, a contemporary Alexander the Great, who invaded India in 324 BC. Prince Sandro Kotas is identified with Chandragupta Maurya, whose date of accession is fixed at 322 BC. This identification has served as the sheer anger in ancient Indian chronology. The Indica of Megasthenes, who came to the court of Chandragupta Maurya, has been preserved only in fragments quoted by subsequent classical writers. These fragments, when read together, furnish valuable information not only about the system of Maurya administration, but also about the social class and economic activities in the Maurya period. The Indica is not free from credulity and exaggerations, but this is true of many other ancient accounts. Greek and Roman accounts of the 1st and 2nd centuries AD mention many Indian ports and enumerate items of trade between India and Roman Empire. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea and Ptolemy's geography, both written in Greek, provide valuable data for the study of ancient geography and commerce. Okay. The date ascribed to the first ranges between AD 80 and 115, while the second attributed to AD 150. Pliny's Naturalis Historia, Pliny's Naturalis Historia, which belongs to the 1st century AD, was written in Latin and tells us about trade between India and Italy. Of the Chinese travelers mentioned may be made of Fahian and Huansang. Both of them were Buddhists and came to this country to visit Buddhist shrines and to study Buddhism. The first Fahian came in the beginning of the 5th century AD, and the second Huansang in the second quarter of the 7th century AD. Fahian describes the social, religious, and economic conditions of India in the age of Guptas, and Huansang present a similar account of India in the age of Harsha. Huansang Harsha, Fahian Gupta. Okay, historical sense. Ancient Indians are charged with the lack of historical sense. It is obvious that they did not write history in the manner it is done now, nor did they write history in the way the Greeks did. We have a sort of history in the Puranas, which, though encyclopedic in contents, provide dynamic dynastic history up to the beginning of the Gupta rule. Statements about events are made in future tense, although they were written much after the events had happened. The authors of the Puranas were not unaware of the idea of change, which is the essence of history. The Puranas speak of four ages called Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. Okay, each KTDK, each succeeding age is depicted as worse than the preceding. And as one age slides into the other, moral values and social institutions suffer degeneration. The idea of time, which is another vital element in history, is found in inscriptions. They specify the years during the reign of a king in which important events take place. Okay, several eras according to which events were recorded were started in ancient India. The Vikrama Samvad began in 58 BC, the Shaka Samvad in AD 78, and the Gupta era in AD 319. Inscriptions record events in the context of time and place, and the Puranas and the biographical works discuss the causes and effects of an event. All these are indispensable to historical reconstruction, but they are not found in any systematic form in the Puranas. Indians display considerable historical sense in biographical writings, which started with the composition of the Harsha Charita by Banabhatta in the 7th century. It is a semi-biographical work written in ornate style, which became the despair of imitators. It describes the early career of Harshavardhana. Harsha Charita by Banabhatta describes the early career of Harshavardhana. Although full of exaggerations, it gives us an excellent idea of the court life under Harsha and the social religious life in his age. Okay. Later, several other charitas or biographies were written. Sandhyakara Nandi's Ramacharita narrates the story of conflict between the Karvarta peasants and Pala prince Ramapala, resulting in the latter's victory, Ramapala's victory. Okay. Sandhyakara Nandi's Ramacharita. Okay. Story of conflict between the Karvarta peasants and the Pala prince Ramapala. Okay. Bilhana's Vikramanga Devacharita. Bilhana's Vikramanga Devacharita accounts the achievements of his patron, Vikramaditya 6R, 1076 to 1127, the Chalukya king of Kalyan. Okay. Even the biographies, Charita of some merchants of Gujarat were written in the 12th, 13th centuries AD. But the best example of earliest historical writing is provided by the Rajatarangini, or the Stream of Kings, written by Kalhana, Rajatarangini by Kalhana, in the 12th century. It is a string of biographies of the kings of Kashmir and can be considered to be the first work which possesses several traits of history as it is understood in our times. Okay, so we have completed the chapter 2. Next video we will discuss chapter 3, the geographical setting. Thank you for listening me. We'll see you in next class. Thank you very much.